Hello from London, language learners. Welcome back to the channel. My hair's getting increasingly shaggy here during the lockdown. It's that time of the month again. Time for a quick update on my Learning Japanese project. First of all though, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Gareth Popkins. Here on this channel I talk about language learning from many angles. Not only my own projects like today, but interviews with inspiring language learners and teachers, a bit of vlogging from language learner events, or a bit of travel vlogging with a language slant when I do it, reviews and tips. If you haven't yet subscribed for the vibe, please do. So, what about my Japanese project in the last month? If you haven't been following this, I started learning the language actually at the beginning of last year, and it's the first time I've seriously engaged with an Asian language, although I had done a mini project on Indonesian. I did that back in 2016. Now, I'm a great believer in the power of consistency and habit with language learning. So the core practice, if you like, for me at the moment with Japanese is a 30-minute slot, 5 days a week at least. That's my goal. It's actually easier at the moment here in London during our semi-lockdown because I've got extra time, 3 days a week, because I don't commute as I would normally be doing on those days into the office in a more central part of London than where I live. So what happened in May? Well, in May I managed to study for 28 out of the 31 days. And my average was 45 minutes a day during those 28 days. So I overshot my goal, and it's always a good idea, I think, to set your goals slightly lower than it's realistic for you to achieve, so you're not really setting yourself up for failure. It's a bit of a psychological game, I think, that's worth playing. Now, in April, I managed a full slate of all 30 days, so I'll get my excuses in early, if you like. Actually, what distracted me on 3 days in May was a good excuse if you're a language lover, and it was the polyglot gathering taking place. That's really what meant that I didn't get a full slate of 31 days. My approach with Japanese is differing from the last language I got really stuck into, which was and is still Basque. I'm at an intermediate level now. With that language I put a lot of emphasis on speaking as soon as possible. But in this project I've decided to postpone speaking, and I have also decided to postpone focusing on learning the kanji. That's basically the Chinese characters which make up an important chunk of the three system Japanese writing. And it's just a question of priorities in terms of learning those characters. Actually, it's something I'd love to do and I will get back to, but I think it's a 2-year project and it's a separate project, I think, one to move on to later. I like to have a core course to guide me through my self-study in a language, and that might be a textbook, it could be an online course. For Japanese, it's Japanese from Zero, and I'm now on the 3rd of the 5 books in that series. And in May, I actually just stayed in lesson 10 of that book. There are 13 lessons in book 3. Things we were focusing on in terms of grammar, there wasn't that much new grammar, were toki, which means when. That was new to me. Takusan, which means a lot or many, and dake, which means only. And both of those two I'd already come across already in my subsidiary courses. While I think one core course gives one structure, helps you pace, gives you some backbone, a roadmap, so I'm mixing all the metaphors with language learning. A couple of secondary courses for me provide variety, but they also give me a chance to prepare the ground for when material comes up in the main course. It's sort of reinforcing from all directions. So I'd come across Takusan, for example, in Assimil, which is my second print course, and in that one I did lessons 35 and 36 new during May. 36 is a revision lesson. Every 7th lesson in Assimil, I think 98 in the book, is a revision lesson. But what I also did in Assimil was quite a lot of doubling back, repeating earlier lessons, including doing dictation exercises with the audio and transcript dialogues, which are the core of each unit in Assimil. And one of the things I've been trying to get set up in the last couple of months is a satellite slot, so that I'm doing not only the 30 minutes, but maybe a few minutes, maybe a 10-minute or 15-minute slot at another time during the day. I didn't actually manage to do that again this month, but what I have been doing is reading carefully through one or two previous Assimil lessons first thing in the morning when I wake up, and less often, but sometimes last thing at night too. So I've had the Assimil by my bedside, and I've been concentrating on trying to understand, but not making any effort to remember, to sort of reinforce what I've already done in that book, and to keep me reading the language, thinking about the language as well as I interact with the dialogues in that book. And there are very few exercises in that book. There are also ones you can do out loud, just sitting in the bed reading. There aren't many of them in each chapter. I've got an audio-only course too, which is Pimsleur, and I've been listening to that when I've been jogging, which I do every other day at the moment during the lockdown. That's also something that I'm doing more of because I've got a bit more time at the moment because I'm not commuting. And yeah, I've got to lesson 22 of 30 so far with Pimsleur. Again, with quite a lot of doubling back and listening to early lessons at that level. There are 30 lessons altogether. I wouldn't want to be learning only with a just audio resource like Pimsleur. Well, I do like the course. I like a bit more direct instruction in English than I'm getting from Pimsleur. There is some explanation from the narrator, and I do like dollops of the written word, a bit of explanation and instruction as well as I'm learning a language. After all, as adults, we are used to acquiring information, having things explained to us in a written form as well, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's one of the things that gives us an advantage actually as adult learners over children, even though a lot of the learning process, basically a lot of listening, a lot of stumbling and practice, it is something which is exactly the same, it seems to me, in many ways for children, small children learning their first language, and for successful adult second language learners. Now, I let you know a couple of updates ago about my latest new book, which is a very old one actually. It's an old 1950s edition, well, a 70s reprint of the 1950s edition of Teach Yourself Japanese, a real blast from the past. Again, it's 30 lessons. It's a grammar translation method, pretty traditional. And I have worked up from lesson 11 to 14 during May. Lesson 11 in particular focused both barrels on the counting system in Japanese. This is a book which really doesn't hold back on giving you like it is, and it starts by saying that the Japanese system of using numbers, the numerals, is of considerable complication and requires much sheer memory work. No sugarcoating, this is a book for adults. It's also quite a dated book. It's not pure grammar translation. There's a conversational focus at the back, but it's one I would only recommend you looking at if you're an experienced language learner with a bit of an academic bent perhaps, and you're prepared to combine it with a modern conversational course. That said, there's a lot of explanation in there. There's a good index for finding things you want to check you've understood correctly in the less extensive explanations in Japanese from zero, or even less in Assimil. And yeah, so it's one, and it's got lots of exercises, you see, translating back and forth, which is again something I really like as an active way of getting the mental, the scaffolding of the structure of the language up inside my head, which is what I'm trying to do in this project before I launch into speaking. Yes, the speaking will come, but there's no rush for me with that this time, and it's not something I plan to start doing in the coming month either. The coming month for me will be more of the same with the Japanese, continuing to build the base, really solid, building up the vocab and getting on with a bit more flashcarding. I did some of that in May, but again, not as much as I would have liked. So that's where I am with my Japanese, slowly, but I think surely moving forward with the language. If you're learning Japanese too, let me know how it's going for you. Similarly, I love to hear feedback and comments on what you think about my project, and if you've got any questions about my materials or approach, do let me know in the comments below. Thanks as always for supporting the channel, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon with another video. As always, if you haven't yet, please do subscribe for the vibe, think about a thumbs up, tickle that bell, and share the affair. See you next time.